he lives with his mum. Drop the knife, baby boy.
Coming in, big man. I'll be seeing you.
I'm the only one in this conversation, innit?
Hello and welcome back to the Movie Memo Recaps. Today we are going to recap a 2025 movie titled Wildcat. Please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead. The movie opens with Ada, a former member of an elite unit known as Breach, who once fought side by side with her partner, Roman. Their relationship faced a pivotal moment when Ada revealed her longing to settle down and start a family. Roman, however, felt unprepared for such a commitment, citing their financial instability and his worries about Ada's troubled brother, Edward, whose constant troubles demanded her attention. Unable to bridge the gap between their differing visions for the future, they chose to part ways. Years later, while enjoying a day at the park with her daughter Charlotte, Ada unexpectedly encounters Roman, who has transitioned into a role as a private security contractor. During their conversation, Ada uses sign language to communicate with Charlotte, revealing that her daughter is deaf. To her surprise, Roman responds in sign language as well, indicating that both have acquired new skills during their time apart. Old feelings resurface as Roman discreetly asks if dinner would be an issue with anyone else. With a smile, Ada invites him to her home, believing Charlotte would appreciate his company. That evening, as they share a simple meal together, Roman cautiously inquires about Charlotte's father. Ada, however, is evasive, only hinting that she had been involved with the wrong person. Realizing that Ada is single, Roman contemplates the possibility of rekindling their romance and making amends for past mistakes. Little do they know that danger is lurking just around the corner. Later that night, their reunion takes a terrifying turn when intruders storm into Ada's home without warning. Caught off guard, Ada and Charlotte are taken captive, along with Edward and his companion, who are tied up in the bedroom. Strangely, the gang decides to spare Edward's life. The leader presents Ada with a chilling ultimatum: her daughter will be taken away unless she delivers £500,000 in cash to a designated coffee shop by 6 a.m. the next morning. Any delay would result in dire consequences for Charlotte. After the gang leaves, Ada clutches her daughter's stuffed animal and silently weeps, overwhelmed by despair. Edward apologizes profusely, explaining that when the criminals discovered he could no longer pay his debts, they turned their sights on Ada instead. Consumed by fury yet focused on saving her daughter, Ada reaches out to Roman. Through tears, she conveys the urgency of her situation and pleads for his help. Roman responds without hesitation, promising to come immediately. He arrives shortly after with backup, Lenny, a former squad mate who fought alongside them in Breach. Together, they begin to devise a plan to confront the threat. The criminal underworld of London is currently dominated by two formidable figures: Christina, who maintains a respectable facade while wielding ruthless power, and Fraser, who embodies the thug life he leads. In the midst of this chaos, a daring plan began to take shape in Ada's mind. She proposed a bold heist, rob Christina's jewelry store and frame Fraser for the crime. The team swiftly made their way to the jewelry store, with Ada instructing her inept brother to remain in the vehicle and not interfere. As Ada approached the main entrance, Roman and Lenny deftly scaled the building, equipped for action. She rang the bell, and when the staff responded via intercom, she spoke solely in Russian. The confused employee inquired if she spoke English, but Ada persisted in her chosen language. Eventually, the staff member buzzed her in, just as Roman and Lenny took their positions. The moment the door swung open, Ada delivered a swift knockout punch to the employee. Roman and Lenny entered through the rear, quickly subduing everyone inside. With precision, Roman planted several small explosives while Ada compelled a female employee to open the safe. They seized £100,000 in cash along with a substantial bag of diamonds. As they made their escape, the explosives detonated behind them in a dramatic display. Without missing a beat, they jumped into their vehicle and sped away. 10 minutes later, they reached the Muska district, but their journey was abruptly interrupted when someone emerged from the trunk, a complication brought on by Edward. It was the parking lot attendant whom Edward had knocked unconscious and stuffed into the vehicle when the attendant attempted to remove him. As they argued over this unexpected development, armed thugs blocked their path. Ada, unwilling to waste precious time, brandished her weapon. The universal language of firearms convinced the thugs to step aside.
I'll be seeing you.
I'm the only one in this conversation, innit? They're gonna come back.
However, chaos ensued when the parking attendant began kicking at the trunk from inside in a desperate attempt to escape. His frantic movements inadvertently triggered a bomb stored within, resulting in a catastrophic explosion that hurled Ada and her team through the air. In that disorienting moment, memories flooded back to Ada's childhood, specifically, instances when she had confronted their abusive father on Edward's behalf. Just as those memories threatened to overwhelm her, Roman jolted her back to reality. There was no time for grief over the attendant who had perished in the blast. Charlotte's rescue remained paramount. Yet as they regrouped, they quickly realized they were encircled by gang members poised for confrontation. Determined to avoid escalating the situation, they attempted to change routes, but gunfire erupted almost instantly. With calm resolve, they took turns providing cover as they retreated into a large building, hoping to find an exit on the other side. Unfortunately, they soon discovered that the structure was teeming with gang members, and combat erupted without warning. Ada quickly instructed Lenny to take Edward and search for transportation while she and Roman stood guard over their escape. Just then, the wail of police sirens pierced the air, and they realized they had inadvertently stumbled into a violent clash between the Muska gang and law enforcement, an unfortunate twist of fate. As Ada and Roman fought off several formidable opponents, Lenny faced his own set of challenges. Edward, ever the burden, suddenly struggled to breathe properly, sending Lenny into a fit of frustration. In a moment of desperation, Lenny slapped Edward, only exacerbating his condition. With his legs giving way, Edward collapsed to the ground. Ada chose not to scold her brother. Instead, she enveloped Edward in comfort. His severe personality disorder necessitated immediate emotional support, and once calmed by his sister's presence, Edward began to recover. They quickly hijacked a parked car and fled before the situation could spiral further out of control. Meanwhile, Christina discovered that her jewelry store had been robbed. While she maintained the facade of a sweet grandmother in front of her grandson, her true nature was cold and ruthless. After tucking her grandson into bed, she retreated to her secret room where all the jewelry store employees had been gathered. Before she could begin her interrogation, one terrified female employee fainted from fear. Undeterred, Christina pressed on, demanding answers about how the robbers had known about the £2 million worth of jewels locked in the safe that day. She executed 2 employees who were clueless about the heist. Finally, one remaining employee confessed that he had leaked information to his former associate, Roman. He begged for his life in exchange for capturing Roman himself, but Christina shot him without hesitation, deeming him unworthy of such a task. Determined to regain control of the situation, Christina dispatched her men to locate Finley, a fence capable of managing such a significant jewelry shipment. She also ordered her crew to capture Roman at all costs. Meanwhile, Ada's team arrived at Roman's friend's house to use his phone and contact Finley. After agreeing to meet in 30 minutes, Ada pointed out the urgency of her situation. She needed to reach CIA territory quickly. After some deliberation, Roman proposed they split up. Ada would head to the CIA while he handled the transaction with Finley. Lenny and Edward would remain at the house. Outside, chaos reigned as police clashed with gang members amid riots and vandalism. As a lone woman in this tumultuous environment, Ada drew unwanted attention from troublemakers eager for confrontation. Though she was reluctant to waste time on them, their provocations were impossible to ignore. In a swift display of strength, she dispatched the entire group in moments before continuing on her way. Her destination was the bar where the CIA operated. The receptionist's face paled at the sight of Ada's return. Without offering an explanation, Ada stepped into the elevator and ascended to the appropriate floor. However, her path was obstructed by a guard who blocked her entrance. Not wanting to force her way through, Ada called upon an old acquaintance, a person who clearly held a grudge against her but was willing to accept payment for delivering a message. Yet even as she navigated this precarious situation, Ada felt her patience wearing thin. After several tense minutes of waiting, Ada contemplated forcing her way inside. Fortunately, her acquaintance returned with the news that the CIA had agreed to meet with her. As she entered the building, she braced herself against the unsettling sights that greeted her, ultimately finding herself face to face with the information dealer. "First time visiting since you quit," the CIA remarked, a reminder of their shared history. Once a respected colleague, Ada had played a crucial role in establishing many operational protocols, which now provided her with a measure of leverage. With urgency pressing upon her, Ada wasted no time getting to the heart of the matter. In mere hours, the CIA's response was chilling. "If you want my guarantee, tie yourself up." Faced with the dire need to rescue her daughter, Ada had no option but to acquiesce. The CIA still harbored complex feelings towards her, and as their conversation progressed, their demeanor turned inappropriate, igniting Ada's anger. In a fit of rage, she retaliated with swift kicks. The CIA, taken aback, summoned enforcers to discipline her, but Ada deftly escaped their grasp and overwhelmed them all. Surprisingly, the CIA chose not to pursue the incident. They seemed to derive a certain satisfaction from watching Ada's resilience. Despite the chaos, the ominous neighbor still ascended the stairs. Despite the friend's attempt at a friendly greeting, The neighbor forcefully shoved the door open and knocked him to the ground. Lenny's fury ignited as he rushed to intervene, but he quickly realized he was no match for the neighbor's size and strength. Lenny found himself on the receiving end of a brutal beating as chaos unfolded around him. In desperation, he drew his weapon and warned the aggressive neighbor that if he took another step forward, the last thing he'd see would be Lenny's furious gaze. The neighbor nodded, and Lenny reluctantly released him, believing he had averted immediate danger. However, he was blissfully unaware that the real peril was just beginning. Earlier, when the neighbor had stormed in, his eyes had landed on a stack of cash sitting carelessly in the room. Without hesitation, he called his armed accomplices to return, sealing Lenny's fate. As Lenny helplessly watched his friend fall victim to a violent attack, rage ignited within him. With Edward hidden away in the bathtub, Lenny found himself forced to confront the mob of thugs alone. When his attempts to suppress the gunfire proved futile, Lenny seized a fire extinguisher and hurled it at their feet, shooting it to create a blinding explosion. The ensuing smoke provided him with the cover he needed to close in and eliminate his attackers one by one. Eventually, silence fell as the gunfire ceased. Wounded but determined, Lenny limped back inside to retrieve alcohol and a knife. Hearing the commotion, Edward emerged from his hiding place only to discover that Lenny had been shot. The bullet lodged in Lenny's flesh required urgent removal. With a mix of fear and resolve, Lenny instructed Edward to assist him in extracting it. Despite his trembling hands, Edward managed to dig out the bullet, but just as Lenny began to commend him for his bravery, Edward succumbed to pain and passed out. Meanwhile, Roman remained blissfully unaware of the chaos unfolding back home. He arrived alone at the laundromat where he had arranged to meet Finley, but time dragged on without any sign of his companion. Just as unease began to settle in, a taxi finally pulled up. Though Roman felt a surge of frustration at the sudden change of location, he had little choice but to climb into the vehicle. The taxi wound its way through unfamiliar streets, eventually stopping beside another car where Finley waited inside. Given the sensitive nature of their dealings, Finley was compelled to exercise extreme caution for his own safety. Roman handed over the bag of stolen diamonds for inspection. Finley recognized them as belonging to Christina but remained intent on proceeding with the deal. Aware that Finley would likely offer a meager sum, Roman prioritized saving lives over profit and nodded in agreement. Finley immediately used sign language to communicate with his deaf driver. Unbeknownst to Finley, Roman understood sign language perfectly. Moments later, someone arrived with a briefcase full of cash. Roman quickly counted the money and confirmed its accuracy before pulling his gun on Finley, making it clear that he had comprehended the earlier conversation. At that very moment, Christina received an urgent call from one of her men informing her that Finley and Roman were together in a vehicle. Without hesitation, she ordered them to eliminate both men. After hanging up, she directed her team towards the CIA's location, eager to uncover who was truly manipulating Roman from behind the scenes. Back with Roman, Christina's henchmen approached with weapons drawn. The driver noticed their advance too late. He was shot dead before he could escape. Reacting swiftly, Roman and Finley scrambled out of the car seeking cover. Realizing that Finley had no combat skills whatsoever, Roman seized the driver's gun and prepared for a fight. As they retreated toward the taxi for safety, Roman found himself alone against a barrage of gunmen. Utilizing the factory's structure for cover, he strategically engaged each assassin one at a time, determined to survive this deadly encounter. After a harrowing battle, he finally vanquished all the attackers. Meanwhile, after leaving the bar, Ada made a desperate choice and stole a pervert's car to drive home. Upon her arrival, she was met with a devastating scene. Lenny lay lifeless from excessive blood loss, and Edward sat in stunned silence on the bed, clutching the lucky stone their sister had given him. When he saw Ada, Edward's voice trembled with sincerity as he said, "I'm truly sorry. I'm always a burden to you." He had come to a painful realization: his departure was the only way to ensure his sister's peace. But for Ada, such thoughts were unbearable. Beyond Charlotte, as the siblings embraced, tears streaming down their faces, Edward's gaze caught a glimpse of a wounded survivor raising his gun. He pushed Ada aside and took the bullet himself, collapsing before her eyes. Consumed by grief and fury, Ada fired multiple shots in retaliation, but no amount of vengeance could bring Edward back. Just then, Roman arrived and enveloped the devastated Ada in a tight embrace, whispering that Charlotte was still waiting for their rescue. Overwhelmed with emotion, Ada's body shook as tears blurred her vision. After a long moment of anguish, she fought to regain her composure. Meanwhile, Christina arrived at the CIA's location. With the transaction completed, the CIA informed her that Frazier was the mastermind behind the jewelry store robbery, echoing Ada's earlier claims verbatim. Yet Christina remained skeptical and insisted on meeting the informant who provided this information. The CIA refused, citing their unbreakable rule against revealing clients' identities. They urged Christina to either pay or risk being blacklisted. With a cold laugh, Christina acknowledged the CIA's audacity. Back with Ada and Roman as they drove to the meeting location, Ada finally revealed the truth: Charlotte was Roman's daughter. A wave of joy washed over Roman as he smiled brightly, promising Ada that their family would weather this storm together. Ada nodded in agreement before stepping out of the car and entering the restaurant where Frazier awaited. Without hesitation, she demanded to know where her daughter was. Instead of answering, Frazier veered off topic, lamenting about his wife's death the previous year. He rambled on about how beautiful, talented, and respected she had been in the criminal world until Ada could only roll her eyes in frustration. Finally, Frazier chillingly confessed that he had killed his wife with his own hands when she attempted to seize his power. The essence of the story underscores a critical lesson: women must never overstep their boundaries, especially not in Frazier's presence. He incessantly proclaimed himself a feminist, but Ada struggled to mask her revulsion as she reiterated her purpose for being there, to ransom her daughter with money. With a wave of his hand, Frazier summoned a henchman to bring forth a box. Fear coursed through Ada as she imagined it contained Charlotte. But when the box was opened, instead of her daughter, it revealed the severed head of a CIA agent. Just then, Christina entered the restaurant, revealing that Ada's plans had been compromised from the start. In a desperate rush, Roman burst in from the car, hurling a large backpack onto a table. He opened it to reveal a bomb, escalating the tension in the room. In response, Ada calmly produced the detonator, stating that with a single press of her thumb, she could send everyone present to their demise. Frazier's demeanor shifted dramatically. The balance of power had shifted. Leaning close to Frazier, Ada whispered menacingly, "I was once forced to kill my father too. As a self-proclaimed feminist, surely you understand, no man should be allowed to rise too high." Under the threat of destruction, Frazier had no choice but to order his men to drop their weapons and bring Charlotte to Ada. Just like that, she had successfully reclaimed her daughter. However, tensions flared between Frazier and Christina over the money, and as Ada's family prepared to leave, the Muska Street gang appeared, mistaking them for rival gang members. In a tense standoff, Ada brandished the detonator as a warning. Christina rallied her forces to charge into battle, igniting a chaotic confrontation. Caught in the crossfire, Ada found no alternative but to activate the bomb. In the end, only she, Roman, and their daughter emerged alive from the devastation. Finally, they could look forward to a new beginning, free from the shadows of their past. Thank you for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.